Hello again, and welcome back to the Side Quest Sages podcast. My name is Luke Tatum.
I'm Corey Sims.
Thank you so much for joining us once again. We are continuing our Chrono Trigger playthrough. If somehow this is your first video, we're doing kind of a guided book club style thing. So we are only going to talk about certain portions of the game. This is Corey's first time. So part of the benefit of watching this is you get to see what he thinks about the story as it evolves as a first-time player. I've played Chrono Trigger many times. This is my first time doing the PC version, but, there's not a whole lot of changes there from, like, the DS. So what we are doing for this episode, we started right when you come out of a armoire, wardrobe, pantry, whatever, into someone's house. It turns out, and so spoiler alert, we are getting to straight into story. If you go back to the first episode, if you want to play with us, there's some little imp characters. It's like a blue imp and a green imp in this house. And so you're in a monster village, which you learn is called Medina Village. And so we're going to be playing through Fiendish Folk, which is this chapter here that we just, that's where that starts. The hero appears, and Tata and the frog. Now, last episode, I told you to play all the way until you got to a big scary castle and some dark woods with bats flying around and stuff. We are not going to go all the way there, just timing constraints and stuff. So we're going to stop after the Denadoro Mountains, after receiving the Masamune blade, the damaged Masamune blade from the mountains there. So that is the end of this episode. It may be a shorter episode. We'll see. Okay, all that prefacing out of the way. Corey, what did you think about this?
This first segment, so we like you said, we've got kind of 3 chapters, and they're very, very distinct for me even. The first I'm going to call my first chapter me bumbling about. It was a familiar area. So we have the Medina Village, and at the same time, it's very different. We're in a somewhat hostile environment. Not necessarily where we popped out, but the characters that were in the home did say, hey, we don't have a problem with you, but other people do. And so it definitely gave a semblance of there's some sort of we know something's changed in the past, and this doesn't feel like it's happened right now, which leads me to believe that something happened in 600 AD. With that in mind, it also doesn't feel like they that's coming from them. It's something that has been handed to them, almost like this animosity towards humans. Now they've chosen to kind of put it aside, but it still is a part of their life.
Well, so let me, because I did exactly what you're doing, and I was like, oh yeah, something changed in the past and all this stuff. So actually, because in a little bit, you're going to start moving around the map again, right?
Yep.
And so the Millennial Fair is still going on. The village where Chrono's house is still there, where Chrono's house is still there. And so both the monster village and the places that you have been in the past are both there. And they both still populated by the same people. It's just that this is our first time seeing the kind of monster perspective
you're
of
right.
what's going on. But it's very confusing. So I'm glad that you said that.
Some of the cities, do blend into my mind. And so that's one of those things where I guess I had thought I was in the original village.
Right, right. So this is 1000 AD, right? So you've got Porre village, which is the part across the bridge, Xenon Bridge. Mm-hmm. To the south of that is Porre village. Porre.
Yep.
And then you've got the village where you grew up in, next to the Kingdom of Guardia and all that stuff. And then on a different island is this monster village. And so the humans think that everything is great and everything is fine. But meanwhile, there's this, you might even say, like, monster cult, right? Like the worshiping this statue of the Fiend Lord and all these things. And so it's like, oh, wait a minute. Wow. I thought everything was at peace and we won this war against the Fiend Lord 400 years ago in 600 AD. And so that's what I kind of
Yeah, and
That's kind of what I
they were
wrote.
like, they should have gotten rid of all you humans, and um, so I wanted to bring that up because there was a lot of confusion during this round, and that was part of me kind of bumbling about, is because I thought I had gone to the original village, and so that wasn't quite clear to me. But I
Yeah.
also knew that things have changed. Going to talk to the innkeeper, they beset me with attack there, and then was willing to let me stay there, but for 200 gold pieces when previously it was 10 or 20.
Yeah.
I definitely noticed that different villages have different prices and things like that, and so it's interesting that there's a little bit of a, I don't want to say arbitrage of MP and HP, but might be able to take some HP from the 10s and sell it in the 20s. No.
Well, I mean, and you've got a special life hack if it comes down to it, because you can go to the end of time and use a
Yep,
magical
for
bucket
free.
that sparkles for nothing.
Just
You
take
could
the
sell
bucket
that
with.
to the innkeepers. No, that's awesome. But I took a note here that just says 400 years have passed since Magus won the war. He's trying to wake up Lavos. Like, that's kind of what you gather, right? It's
Hmm.
like, oh my God, what's going on? I thought this Lavos thing happened in 1999, So here we
Right.
are 1,000 years prior, all of 999 years prior. And, it's like, oh, okay. So that's what happened.
Right.
Now we learn kind of what maybe Magus is the true culprit, right? He's created all this problem. He's the reason the world is ending. Um, and so anyway, go ahead. Go ahead. I interrupted
Yeah.
your
Um,
initial thoughts.
I guess I early on beat Heckran, the mini boss of this period, and
Mm-hmm.
after that I didn't really see as many monsters. So what was interesting is that the game remembers your decisions, and it it affects the world meaningfully. I didn't have as many enemies attacking me in various places, at least in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I think that's, the broader conflict wasn't resolved by that. It was, um, the monsters are still there. There's still animosity, still unresolved things of the past, still unresolved things in the future.
Right. It's another crack in that sort of like pristine game intro. We talked about that on the first gameplay section. It's like, oh, it's the Millennial Fair, everything's perfect. Oh, wait. There's a warp back into the past. There's all this stuff going on. And so I really like how you layer in as you play this game. You get, oh, wow, that's kind of interesting. There's a lot more going on there. Oh, wow, this other time period is introduced. Wow, that's a lot of new information, new characters, new stuff. And it's just kind of like, it's not necessarily a traditional way that you would sort of find these things. It's like, oh, wow, 1999, oh, wow, 2300 AD. And so you mentioned the Heckran's Cave. I was going to talk about that for a second too.
Yes,
And then
please.
I want to go back and talk about Melchior. I want to talk about
Yep.
him a little bit.
Okay.
But Heckran, the Heckran's Cave, it's this little forced tutorial, right? Because at the end of the last playthrough, we were at the end of time. You learn from that little guy Specchio, which he has no backstory. Who knows what he is, who he is, or whatever. But he teaches you magic, and so Heckran's Cave is a forced tutorial because if you use physical attacks in that cave, you're not going to do very much damage. Like technically, I guess you could eventually kill the enemies with regular attacks, but it's trying to say, hey, you should probably use spells, since you got them, right?
Exactly.
And so I like that kind of not handholdy, but still kind of getting you to test out your new stuff. It's not a pop up menu like we talked about before. It's
There
just
was
saying,
certainly some
do it.
guessing and checking, is especially later on with the fighting at the bridge was kind of the
Yes.
first real definitive got information back that was relevant and for how I was playing at the time.
Yeah.
I knew going into the cave that we had to use magic based on somebody had said something to that effect. I can't remember exactly where, but
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Uh, well, and so what did you think about Melchior living on the island of the monsters, by himself. He's the swordsmith who is at the Millennial Fair at first, right? And so it's interesting that he doesn't live with humankind in a way, right? He's kind of off on his own. And he's still happy to show you his collection of swords and sell you weapons if you show up, but he just kind of lives in his own little house over there,
Um, he's like a quiet character for me. He
Yeah.
is definitely I don't know what to make of him quite yet. He There's definitely a mystery for me. But on the whole, he seems like a positive guy. And in fact, that he's just kind of hanging out with others is kind of proof of that.
Yeah. The monsters aren't attacking him either.
Right.
Right. So he's kind of like able to walk in two worlds and all that. It's kind
And
of an
so what's
interesting
his
thing.
secret?
Yeah. What's his secret?
No, I'm
Why do
asking. No, I'm just kidding. No,
you know
tell
me. I'm not
Tell
going to
me.
tell you. No.
Okay.
But so let me see. Medina Village, real quick. Well, I'm just glancing at my notes, so I apologize to everybody.
Okay.
We're jumping around a lot. You mentioned, the shopkeep won't sell to you, the innkeeper won't rent your room. It's like people are sicking people on you and making you fight and stuff. Ozzie the Eighth is the
Yes.
mayor, and so he's. It's kind of funny because in the Porre village in 1080, if you go talk to the mayor there, he's this greedy, bombastic
Yep.
guy, and all that. So it's this, again, a lot of parallels, right? The game takes such advantage of this idea of like parallels, right? It's like the Chancellor in 1080, the Chancellor in 680, right? The layout of the land, even, right? The continents are sort of in the same place. You get a better sense of that as we go, as you start to learn the
Yep.
layout of the different time periods. But yeah, even between monsters and humans, it's like you've got this greedy, bombastic guy that, and we're about to talk about another greedy, bombastic guy that's kind of cashing in on his son's reputation and some of these things. And it's like there's a lot of repeated ideas and themes, and it sort of drives those things home for me. But you learn that Ozzie is the first. The first is the one that fought with Magus. He's one of the generals of Magus,
Yes.
who was in the war 400 years ago. And so Ozzie and the other two generals, there's some kind of interesting trivia, which we'll probably cover next time, talking about their names and kind of how that came to be. But Ozzie is a reference, so do with that what you will. But after the Heckran's Cave boss, so I'm going to go back to Heckran's Cave, there's some dialogue that I wrote down. Luca says, so Magus created Lavos in the Middle Ages, and in the future, Lavos destroys the planet. Marl says, if we go to the Middle Ages and stop Magus, can we change history? And so, yes, could it be? You've already done it once before, right? That's kind of the whole idea. So that becomes the new mission at that point. And then you hilariously pop out of a whirlpool in the water and land next to Luca's house because, of course, right? It's just so silly. But there
It's
you are.
it.
And did you run around and talk to anybody like Chrono's mom or anything?
Yeah,
people?
I talked to everybody, and mom was happy to see me, but concerned for my safety.
Yeah, nice little touches. It's all good stuff.
I did go back to the fair and just to see if anything had changed. The only thing that changed from my perspective was me, because I could go and one hit Gato, and so I chose to do that 4 times. So I have plenty of silver points. I can exchange it for money, which I have like 20,000 gold pieces right now, so it's not something I need to do. So I'll just keep my silver piece or silver
Yeah,
points.
just hang on to those silver points. You never know, right? But that's funny. I don't know if you did this just for people playing along. If you go to Luca's house, since that's where you pop out, you might have stopped in there. You can go talk to her mother, Lara, and as you talk to her, her dad will walk in and he'll say, let's see, Tabin. Tabin is the name of the dad. He'll walk in and say he bought her an apple with some of the money from today, like just as a thoughtful little gift and stuff. And then he'll be waiting in the living room or the front room of the house. And if you go talk to him, he has a vest that he's custom made
Yes.
for Luca. So it's a pretty good upgrade at that moment for her defensively, and just kind of a cool little touch. Like they have a little bit of backstory to the parents. I feel like it's so tropey, but there's typically not a family or a lot of family in you know most stories, to be honest with you,
Right.
like Disney
Seems
movies,
seem like they're
even
orphans.
JRPGs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amnesia, orphan, go kill God. Like that's what you do, you know.
Yeah.
And so um what I'm trying to say is if you get amnesia, you have a higher chance than usual of getting to kill God, right? That's the
Mm.
statistical breakdown of that. But so it's just fun stuff. But eventually you go back into 600 AD, unless there's anything else you'd like to talk about, in the present.
No, and I'm still in my bumbling phase because I actually took care of Heckran really early on in this
Mm-hmm.
because it was pretty obvious that there was something going on, and like I said, not much changed, but it was I relieved a pressure point in the the present, and then went back to 600 AD, and that's when here's kind of just an example of what happened for me. I spent probably 45 minutes to an hour trying to figure out how to get past the bridge. This bridge really seems to be a contested point for me, I guess. I just have so many problems with this bridge. Uh, uh, so I knew I had to get the food, and what I thought to that I had done was actually spoke to him several times. But I had spoken to one of the characters that was close by because he kept running back. And so I'm like, okay, well, they said the food is something that they're working on, but they haven't completed. It's what I seem. So I
Mm,
was like, okay, maybe there's something that needs to happen before the food's ready. So I went around and really I just couldn't figure out what it was. So I ended up going to the end of time and started. The only place I could think of, I wasn't thinking that we'd go to the future again because we just came from there. So I would
right.
assume the past or the further past. So I went to 65 million BC and played around a little bit there. Um, really, I felt out of place because I got to a point where I was fighting an ape and got just decimated. So it wasn't the right time for that. But I do know that there is something that needs to be obtained there, some sort of gem, ruby, I think. It was mentioned, and I think that's what the tribes people had kind of sent me there. But they had kind of a rudimentary English language, so they, me, caveman, whatever. So it's just
Yeah, yeah. I have some
it's
good dialogue written down for future stuff that you haven't seen
good.
yet there, but yeah,
So
that's
that kind
hilarious.
of that kind of that was what ate up a little bit of time for me to complete, um, but it was fun because it shows the game is already a little bit less more hand holding than it had before. It does give you hints, it points you in directions. It did talk about the Denadoro Mountains early on and some other things. So it was at that point I did have to do a little search because I was just like, what is going on? Because I thought something was wrong. So I did do my first search of what's going on with the food, and
Yeah.
it was as simple as go talk to the chef, and he has his problem with his brother, who is the lead general at the bridge, or knight, if you will.
Hmm.
Gave them uh, the meat. I hesitate to. They called it jerky. I hesitate to kind of.
With the things that are happening at the current time that we're
Yeah.
recording this,
But
yes, I
so that
understand.
was that was something that was mentioned. But then we
Yeah.
go on to fighting the bridge monsters. So it starts off. He has some skeletons that come by, which was, oh, cool, skeletons. All right, something kind
Right.
of new. Something that was familiar because a lot of the monsters we fought at this point kind of just feel they're just monsters. They're colorful. They have different attributes and things like that, but they're not very recognizable as, I could say that's a goblin or something, but a skeleton pops
Right.
on the screen, boom, that's recognizable, especially when soldiers that are from my side get resurrected as skeletons, and that was a cool touch. I really like that. And then fighting the amalgamation of all of the skeletons at the end, having the head and the body, which we've already had before, with the tank dragon. This had two, but now it's talking different weaknesses, because I was doing lightning and ice, trying to figure out what was more effective, because the physical attacks weren't.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm glad you bring that up. I like that it kind of gets progressively a little more complex. You and I both played Xenoblade Chronicles. Xenoblade Chronicles is pretty complicated. There's a bunch of mechanics. You continue
Yeah.
to get new mechanics as the game evolves and stuff. Chrono Trigger is not complicated, but it layers on a little bit more, to the battle system and that sort of
Mhm.
stuff. It's like, oh, now you have magic. Oh, now different types of magic may or may not be useful here, and some, when you're fighting that amalgamation of skeletons, I forget what his name is. Uh, Zombor.
Zombor,
Zombor.
yes.
Yes. I love that name. So, he's got certain elements on certain body parts that will actually heal him. It's like, oh, well, don't do that. That just wiped out my last couple of turns of damage or whatever. And so, just having to kind of juggle that and be aware of that. I like it. I really think that adds a lot to it. It keeps it fun, but it's not like, let me dig through these menus to figure out how to do this. There's not
Right.
14 different status effects and, like Persona or something, right? Where you got all these different things. It's just fun. It keeps it engaging and moving along. It's one of the things I respect the most about this game is pacing. You play a couple of hours, a lot of stuff happens as long as you're moving the story. We're going to get to a point later on where it's going to open up a lot, and there will be a bunch of side quests that you can do but don't have to do. Right?
Okay.
You can already go fight the last boss, and I know that you decided not to do that.
Oh, yes.
And so I kind of forgot to bring that up at the beginning. We'll talk about probably endings. We might even do a whole episode on endings or something at the end to kind of talk about all those different things. But the option is there. Like, you don't have to experience most of this game. If you just wanted to go grind, I mean, it would take you a long time, but you could just go really grind out some levels and you could win right now. It wouldn't be the ending that you probably want, but you could,
Just like in real life, you have all these available options, and it's based on your information, your values, and everything that you make all these choices. Mitigation of risk, that's another one.
Yeah.
Right now risk is super high for me to go and do something like that, and I don't want to do that either, as practical point, because it would kind of defeat the purpose of me wanting to play. Because what I do aside from this podcast is I play for the story, I play for the experience, I play to understand myself better through other characters. So
I think that your compulsion to unravel the mysteries of the Chrono Trigger game, story, universe, whatever you want to say, I think is very strong and should be very strong. Right. I don't really know anybody that would just go, I'm just going to get some levels and win right now. I'm sick of this or whatever, right? It's still pretty early on. It's not even a long game if you do everything. And so, but there will be a point when it really, really opens up, and it's just, there's a whole bunch of stuff that you just do not have to do. And I think that what we're going to find is the definition that really, really fills out, and puts meat on this game is those side quests. At the very beginning, first episode, dev history episode, I was like, I think this is the perfect first game for our podcast, because it's all about those side quests. There's not that many, but you got to do them. It compels you. It compels me to want to do those. So, and I do have to say too, going back to the commander at the bridge, being brothers with the chef at the kitchens and all this, I just really like that. He's like begrudgingly providing food to his brother and stuff. And they've got this kind of like unresolved thing, but it's like there's a lot of soul in that little interaction. He's like,
Yeah.
come here. Here's the food, tell him not to die out there, that kind of thing.
It very much mirrors my relationship with one of my brothers, Logan. When
Really.
we were growing up, we had 8 years of difference in age, and I absolutely did not want him to be around me. I did not want him to play with my GameCube or N64. It became our GameCube because mom made. But I didn't want to. It's just there's a lot of that animosity, and it was for selfish reasons for myself, and we thankfully didn't have that. That was resolved before we became adults, and now he's one of my greatest supporters. So I'm just thankful for things, and so it's you can see yourself in games. You can or project. I can project myself into the game at least. I'm very successful at that.
I think it's meant to be a mirror. Like that's what narratives are. It's meant to be a mirror and to help you like, I've experienced something that's vaguely like this. Maybe I can extract a lesson, distill something out of this. And so that's really cool. That's really cool. I'm glad you brought that up. My sister and I have always gotten along really well. And so in that way, we're very unusual as siblings. But we didn't have a whole lot of that, like competitiveness or like fighting over stuff or whatever. Sometimes we would spend money together on a game that we both wanted to play or something, that kind of thing. Although some of that was me being more excited than her and saying, "Hey, you got some money saved up. Come on, let's go. But that's me. I get hyped. I'm the hype guy, I guess. So anyway, I do like that little exchange. And then, so I beat Zombor, and you do get to see Ozzie here, right? So we're in the past. So this is the original Ozzie the first. And he's, this green flying, guy. He has magic, apparently, because he can resurrect skeletons. But, we don't directly fight him, really, because he just kind of runs off.
Yeah,
it's not
I
like
was
a
able to
proper
do some
confrontation.
damage. Damage, but he got away, and I had thought about actually trying to try to focus on him this time, but after being decimated by Zombor in the first time around, where I'm like, okay, this is a little bit more at stake than what I was anticipating, and a little bit more of a time sink because you have to do that sequence of fighting everybody again.
Yeah.
So I was going to try to see if there was a way to defeat him, but I didn't. So,
well, I'll just tell you, there's not a like branching story where you've defeated Ozzie and like,
okay.
all that. He's gonna play a role later and stuff. So, he's gonna
figured
get away. But
it really played like that's the case. So and especially his ancestor was still in the future, or the present, excuse me, in 1000 AD.
Yeah.
So
That's the
we'll
thing.
see.
It would be really cool if there was that many permutations. It's like, oh, well, what if you beat Ozzie here and then he's not in this fight later and then blah, 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 but
The decision trees on that would be massive for the amount of you already talked about. We already had a bulked up cartridge for the game at that time, so I understand you can't have everything have real life decision making trees and
right
and consequences. So, but
closest we've come yet is Baldur's Gate 3 with that kind of thing, I would say, as far as a proper RPG experience. And even that, you're like, wow, I wish I could do this instead. There's always something. You're never going to be fully satiated when it comes to decision trees. But we get to Dorino Village next. And so here we learn that the legendary sword, the Masamune, which is how I pronounce it. I don't know. Do you say Masamune or do you say something else?
I said Masamune.
Masamune. So that could even be correct.
I was thinking like Mononoke, kind of like that. But we find out that it's two spirits, if that's a little early, but it's two names as one whole.
Yeah, and so I don't know if he's Mune or if he's Mune. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe tell us in the comments correct
Yeah.
pronunciation, or if anybody knows what the correct pronunciation even is.
I took 0
Uh,
minutes of Japanese, so
yeah.
all I know about Japanese is what I've seen on TV and in games.
I probably ought to just look it up. Pronunciation of Masamune, because that's a sword name that is in a lot of stuff, right? Masamune. So you're correct. So Masamune. I've been saying it wrong my whole life, but it's said to be in a mountain to the east, and so only that sword, for whatever reason, only that sword can defeat Magus, the Fiend Lord, and only the hero can wear it, can wield that sword. So there's a bunch of like limiting logic gates here, right? You
Yeah.
have to be the hero. You have to have the hero's badge. You have to have the sword. So
It's all these little pieces and not necessarily anything that's true. It's just something that they heard
yeah,
or it's been
and I don't
passed
know.
down in its telephone.
I don't know if we do find out that it is literally true. You know that all those things have to
Somebody just
be.
started a rumor, it was anonymous or something. I don't know.
I.
The shadow government. No. But
Yeah.
it's definitely it's not something that is fully developed. It's definitely there's pieces missing to it. It feels incomplete. And as I started playing, they started talking about this kid, this the Tata, and that he had been hoisted up from nothing to hero, and he's going to save us all. It's hard to be convinced that everybody is actually thinking that this is going to actually solve the problem, but they want to put some belief behind it at the very least. Some people also want to take advantage of it. Like his parents. I think
Yeah.
was something that we were both kind of chatting about beforehand. Is his dad really seems to be on that bandwagon of oh, this is my son, and I'm so proud, and with it, he even says like, oh, I didn't even expect this, I didn't see this coming, or maybe
Right.
the grandfather had said that, but he was ready to believe in a solution, I suppose,
I have a
or take
question
advantage
for
of
you.
it.
Did you go to Guardia Castle and talk to the king and the queen and all those people at any point?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 'cause she was at the bedside of the king,
Right.
and
The
he had
king
been
has
injured.
taken ill, or yeah, has been injured, and because he went to the front lines and fought himself, so he's kind of a King Theoden sort of a, we'll
Oh
just go
no.
down there and do it myself. That's how dire the situation is made to be. It's a kind of a good
Right.
way to show how dire the situation is. Even the king must go fight, and so everybody has bought into this idea that Tata, this vagrant, or I forget how they described it. Somebody said, I don't see my note, but somebody's calling him vagrant or some kind of like derogatory term, and then all of a sudden he's the hero of legend because he has the hero's badge, and so how could it not be? As was foretold. It's kind of that lisan al gaib kind of a thing, right?
Yes.
And so the lisan al gaib badge is all the
He
proof you
has
need.
been blessed. He is thy hero.
Yes. So we let's see. We go in and we talk to all the people at the elder's house. You will meet this guy named Toma, or you'll see this guy named Toma. I assume
Yeah.
you went there.
Yep.
And so another thing that's kind of getting started, another little side story, is Toma is being sent on this quest for the rainbow shell.
Yep.
You don't really know anything about that. If you talk to the elder of that village, he will say that with the rainbow shell, he could make a prismatic helm
armor.
or
Oh,
prismatic
yeah.
armor. I'm sorry,
Some
armor.
either one. Prismatic something.
I've got my note. Yeah, prismatic armor.
Okay.
and that would like defeat all magic or reflect all magic or something like that. It's extremely repellent to magic. So super cool, amazing. Can't really do anything about that. You can go to the inn, and Toma will be there, and you can buy him a drink, and he'll tell you more stuff. But this is not a story you can resolve right now. It's just something that I want to make sure we at least mention for now. And but Toma will also tell you that a frog lives in the woods if you buy him a drink, which you don't have to do.
Which is how I heard. Yes. Now that
Okay. So you learn that as well, and so I assume you go off to the woods next. Is that what you did?
Sure did.
Okay. What do you think?
So,
how was that experience?
The woods, there's just it's a straight line there. You can fight as many or as little monsters. I think there's a final battle at the top that you can't avoid, but just I saw the bush kind of move, and so that kind of signaled to me that there was something about that bush. Fell down and found Frog in his little hovel, and he's a broken frog. He feels so much guilt. He doesn't want to participate because he's already failed in his mind. And this was another one of those, well, maybe I can bully him into to coming with me. So I just sat there and spammed, talking to him, and he just kept saying the same thing over. So I was like, okay, 10 or 15 times is enough. No, it wasn't quite that much, but it was 5 or 6 times. And his refusal isn't out of cowardice. It's still kind of out of his duty. His unresolved responsibility. So he's just kind of trapped in the past. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess let me ask you this, because we talked right before we hit record about, kind of where we were going to leave off for this episode. Because it's all me. I gave us a very ambitious amount of plot to cover for the next one, and even I had some difficulty knowing exactly what to do. I had difficulty doing everything. So I'm ahead of you right now, but that'll be corrected soon. For the next episode, we'll play up to the Fiend Lord's castle, the big scary place in the woods. But you kind of have all the elements of the story up to this point, right? You've got a big bad, you've got a false hero, right? Because you got this kid running around with this badge that everybody thinks is just some loser kid, troublemaker. And, you've got who is surely the real hero here in this hole in the ground. And so, I mean, what do you think about this? Do you have any comments on like the plot elements and what do you think is going to happen? Those sort of things.
That's definitely how I feel about it, is that he's the hero that will come about, or our group will be the hero, if however that comes about in the story. I already am suspicious that this kid is not quite what it seems to be. I mean, but I'm not necessarily dismissive of it either, because, could he be a link? Perhaps, I don't know.
Sure.
Kids with less have done more.
I mean, we've already got time travel. Is this Ocarina of Time? I mean, that's a perfectly valid inference to make, I would say. Have you heard any rumblings or seen any conversations where people are talking about a knight named Cyrus?
Yeah, I don't recall exactly what they had said about it, but that name did come up at least 2 or 3 times.
Okay, I'm going to quickly look. I don't have any specific notes on this week about that. Hold on. Oh, I misspelled it. Here we go. Back in Guardia Castle, somebody says this. They say, a knight named Cyrus has disappeared. But, and so they're distraught about that. Like, he was like the guy from the way that it's presented. He's like the knight, who people would consider to be the hero. Okay, so the um, he's gone. So what do we do? And everybody was upset about that. But there is a small boy, and he's got the hero's badge or the hero's medal, who has gone to the southern continent to slay Magus. And if you talk to the king, that's kind of what he alludes to as well.
Yep.
It's like, well, hey, at least this kid showed up with the hero's medal. I guess everything's okay. I mean, everybody just sort of leans right back into that prophecy foretelling sort of thing and says, well, it's all right. Somebody showed up with the badge, so I guess we just wait to be saved,
Sit back.
And
We'll just defer to you. We'll just defer to you, kid.
right. And so the question then for me is, who is Frog and how does he relate to this story, right? What happened to this Cyrus character that now we have Frog living in a hole in the ground, and we have this other kid that doesn't seem very heroic, masquerading perhaps as the hero, right? Like, so I don't want to put thoughts into your brain, but I think that the game is intending for you to infer, and if you talk to everybody exhaustively, that Frog is probably Cyrus. Something happened to him, and I will just briefly kind of add a little extra note to that. Let me find my thing here. Frog in Japanese, his name is Kaeru. 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 Keru. And so frog is a straightforward English term. But in the Japanese, that Japanese name, that word means frog, and it also means change or to change. And so it's very much, it's that, Arthurian sort of era tale, like a princess and the frog, like the knight gets transformed into a frog. And so I think you're meant to make certain inferences to familiar things.
And I was kind of fighting it because it seemed too obvious.
Well, I mean,
so
I'm not telling you what.
Prince, yeah, kiss the frog. It's a prince kind of thing. The knight was missing. I guess for me, I was trying to block that as much as possible in my brain, just because
I'm
I'm
not telling you what's going to happen, Corey.
No, but
I'm just telling
for me,
you,
Cyrus is gone.
Okay.
And attacking is how I interpreted that at that time. That doesn't mean that he hasn't already been there and come back as something else.
Well, obviously he doesn't have the hero's medal, right? Or the hero's medal is not currently possessed by Cyrus, or who Cyrus has transformed into, or whatever. Sure. Whatever the story is, right. Whatever happened, we just know that Tata has the medal and Frog doesn't. And Frog is feeling very defeated and can't go do the thing, right? He doesn't have the legendary sword. He doesn't have the stuff that he needs to go fight the Fiend Lord. And so there's just a couple of things I wanted to make sure that we kind of got out there, in the conversation as we progress. So I guess from here, let's see.
Went to Denadoro Mountains.
Yeah. Frog, basically, as you said, he says, there's naught he can do. He is no hero. That's his words. So Denadoro Mountains seems to be the only place left to go, and indeed it is. What did you think about this? What are your comments on the mountain climb?
So the mountain climb, there are plenty of mountain monsters to hit up, and lots of little chests that you get along the way, and it's a lot of curvy paths, and the scenery is really quite nice. You have a waterfall, you have some rainbows in that waterfall. The music doesn't place this as an evil place. It's a little bit more, it feels kind of like jungle Donkey Kong, kind of not anything evil, but there are enemies and things like that. So getting to the top was fun, because you got to see off at the top of the peak the distance, and you could play around a little bit with some of the waterfall, kind of go into different places, and it was a fun level.
Yeah, yeah. Hopping down the waterfall and stuff. There's some impractical, improbable, like jump off a cliff and end up unharmed sort of things going on there, right? But all in good fun. It's a fun game and doesn't, it's not Mario Bros, but it's also not gritty ultra realism, right? It's
Yeah.
somewhere in between the two. We don't have dancing trees, on the levels and stuff, but yeah. So you kind of explore around there. Some of the enemies are magic resistant. We have some of those things kind of returning,
Yeah.
and then you get to the cave, right? Thankfully, it's a very predictable game when it comes to, hey, there's a save point. Hey, you should probably save. You should probably use a shelter item to get your
Shelter.
HP and TP back or whatever.
That was
And
actually my first time using a shelter. Was
really,
on the Yep. But, uh, partly because I didn't need it because I had small amounts of potions just to top me off or get me to different places without, or just not being able to be around a save point even. So
yeah. And so you go in to this little cave and
there's a little
talk to me
kid in
about
there.
that. Yeah.
There's just a little kid,
Yeah. I love
and
I love this sequence. I have some dialogue written and stuff, but I want to hear your thoughts first, right?
takes me up to the sword there and starts having a conversation, and he introduces me to his brother, and now something's not quite right. And just like they start talking about testing and all sorts of things, and they it's really kind of it kind of I hate to keep using. I can't remember if this even came out afterwards, but like the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, you have the two witches that were twin Rova. They
Twin Rova.
become one. These are two
Yes.
brothers that are kids or spirits. That come together of the sword. I'll find out later. So the battle. I actually was able to do this in one go and it was a lot, and I I thought it might be the kind of battle that you have to manage your health resources, and your MP especially in this one, because I was pretty sure it would be magic based. Doing 400 a damage at a time, did that several times. I'm currently with my party. I stuck with, and I probably should have said this earlier, Marl and Robo
Okay.
with
Okay.
Chrono.
So
And
I
so
thought you might continue that, and so I've purposely kept Luca in my party more.
yeah,
Like, I like to do Luca and Robo because I like their dynamic together. Being the some of the stuff we talked about last episode. Kind
yeah,
of that symbolic relationship and stuff. So that's awesome. I was about to ask you who you had in your party, and you answered it. So please go
yeah.
ahead.
The so But with Marl and Robo, they were able to get an ice tackle, is what I believe it is, and that went from me doing the ice sword with Chrono and Marl to 400 and change to over 600 damage, and then I think let's see if I did the math. I think it was about 3,000 health if I counted all my attacks, approximately, and that was a lot. He got me down pretty close, and I did have to revive a few members. He did take control. I remember seeing a snippet about combating some sort of whirlwind attack or something like that, and I didn't quite understand it. And so I don't
Yep.
know if that was something that was part of this particular battle, but my characters got taken over a couple
Um,
times, or maybe I'm
I
thinking.
don't
Am
I
I
don't
thinking?
remember. Wind slash. So the townsperson says wind slash can counter whirlwinds,
Okay,
and so like if there's a whirlwind, you can use that attack. I
okay,
don't remember if this is the intended use of that information or
okay.
not. I had a pretty strong move set otherwise, so I didn't try to do that. I kind of forgot.
Yeah,
I did take that note though. And so, of course, you're referring to the big ultra boss thing that they kind of fuse into and stuff.
yeah.
They do
Later,
fight you at first as separate entities, like little, I don't know,
I
yellow
think
guys
there
that
one
are.
had a blue collar and the other had a yellow collar. And as far as my experimenting went, ice and lightning is the powers that I have. Didn't do anything different to each of them.
Yeah,
They were about the same.
I don't know if they are different when it comes to that. Just off the top of my head, I think they're both intended to be wind spirits. You know, it's kind of like the Masamune is like a wind blade in a way,
Yeah.
and so, um, you know, because they inhabit it as we learn after the fight. But yeah, it's a really fun. For me, this is one of those like big standout, cool moments in the game that I really, really love. You know, getting into the cave and there's these green-haired kids. Green is associated with wind a lot of the time, and you know, so
Good to know.
green-haired kids that turn into these things and then become this huge monster, and they fake you out. Chrono Trigger does this several times throughout the game where it kind of fakes you out. It sets your expectations very intentionally to disrupt them, right? That first phase of the fight is not that hard.
No.
In fact, it's pretty dang easy, you know, and you knock them out pretty quick. And they go, uh, you know, well, hey, like at first it's I'm the wind, whoosh. That's like what the kid says at the beginning before, you know, there's any combat. And then, uh, let's see, dialogue that I wrote down. Mune says, humans are all the same, aren't they? It's how you use the sword that's important, not just that you have the strongest one. Masa says, you can't even understand something simple as that. Guess that proves you're human. And then after you fight them, Masa says, no one's lasted this long since Cyrus, right? And that's when they become the bigger one. So Cyrus, too, had to fight to get this sword. Which, again, you know, we're kind of building in this whole mythos and backstory around this character Cyrus, that we do not know his fate. And I do want to go back for a quick moment before we kind of cap off our conversation with the Masa and Mune characters and fight. That line, I don't know if you picked up on this, but humans are all the same, aren't they? It's how you use the sword that's important, not just that you have the strongest one. And I'm going to go back to my notes on Melchior. Melchior says, when you talk to him in his cabin, weapons are not meant for the taking of lives. They're meant for saving them.
Yes.
Right? And so he is a swordsmith.
That one.
Yeah. A paradoxical character, but he is, you know, he is a swordsmith who makes weapons for self-defense, you know, for protecting people, for the right reasons, you might say. And we could get into, you know, just war theory or whatever, but like the idea that you need to be able to defend yourself against whatever evils may exist. You know, I certainly would agree with that, right? You should be able to put up a fight if somebody has evil intent against you or your family. And so I like that we have a lot of this, you know, and the whole context of this entire thing is in a knight, you know, system, right? A knights and lords, the king, the commander, you know, all these people. It's this sort of chivalric sort of society, and Frog in many ways kind of tries to espouse that, especially the first time we meet him, right? He's this model of a knightly character. He's got a code of honor, you know, and all this stuff. And so it's, yeah, we're all armed, but there's evil afoot. You know, we must defend our people and lands and whatnot. And so it's this comfortable, but also a little different sort of setting, you know, and to me, that's some of what really, really shines in this game for me. You know, it's just, oh yeah, I kind of know this, but not enough, you know, like what makes this special and different? What is their take on it? But the idea last episode of Terminator and Robo, it's like, well, it's not Terminator, but it's kind of inspired by that. But it's enough different that I didn't even connect that dot until we recorded last time. So anyway, that's my long-winded explanation of that. You win the fight after, you know, a hard-won battle. He's got a lot of health. He's very tanky, as you said. And so Masa and Mune, they say that Chrono and his friends should be able to help them find the proper owner of the sword. Masa and Mune really are the sword. They inhabit the sword, and so they go in to the blade and agree to go with you. So you get what looked like a beautiful, pristine weapon becomes just a damaged piece of metal, really just the blade part of the Masamune. And then they transport you to the bottom of the mountain since they are wind spirits. So
That was wonderful, by the way. So the escape rope kind of thing. Just, I was like, oh, thank you.
Well, there's a tropey thing that you don't know in Dragon Quest. There are spells that you learn. The main character in like basically every Dragon Quest learns an ability after a period of time to be able to escape any dungeon and go back to the entrance. And then there's another one where you can move from place to place, around the world, but only if there's no ceiling above you, right? So it's two different spells. It's kind of like nowadays you would think that's clunky and that's not a good quality of life thing, but it's funny. Like in Dragon Quest 9, I know I'm on a tangent, but in Dragon Quest 9, like you're in a house and you cast Zoom to go to a different town and you'll bonk on the ceiling and then fall back down. It lets you try. It just doesn't work, So it's silly.
Speaking of letting you try, this game, I did notice that this is definitely a side item. I can revive. I think it'll let me revive people that are dead. It'll let me use an item, or potions when people are full. It'll let you make mistakes in that respect during combat. And I've done that several times where I selected the wrong character, and I'm like, gosh. But
well, this is very much like part of that era as far as the battle system and stuff. Older Final Fantasies and stuff will do this as well. It's like you can cast a healing spell on the enemy in a Final Fantasy game. And like, you shouldn't do that, but you can do that, and it's also like the pacing of it, like it's an initiative thing. It's like you're putting in your order and then waiting for your turn. So if a lot of orders have been placed all at once, you might have the enemy move and finish their attack while you're making a menu choice, and they kill one of your party members. Well, you told me that you wanted to use a mid potion on that guy. Well, he's dead, so that sucks. You shouldn't have done that.
That's a good example of something that did happen, right?
Yeah.
Which I think is actually kind of a cool thing. It helps me be better, do better kind of thing. Like, okay, yeah. But at the same time, you can experiment because there might be a reason why you might want to, for example, heal an enemy or something. But this is a D&D thing, so I don't think it's like a spoiler or anything that'll be disruptive to bring up. But like Final Fantasy, you might have an undead enemy and you cast heal on him, it'll kill him. Oh, sure.
Right. So, stuff like that is
like
definitely
in D&D and
yeah.
Okay.
But it's not, you don't have to do that. You could fight them regularly, right? But if you have like a whole bunch of health potions and you think about it and you're like, wait a minute, would that kill an undead? And it does. It's like, wow, that's super cool. It's a cool little thing that's there for you if you choose to engage with it.
I'd rather have the freedom of the game than sacrifice that freedom for a little more security.
Yep.
I'm sorry, I had to. I'm sorry.
No. I love it. And so that's basically where you've wrapped up. You said you went back to Frog's Cave and you tried to engage with him after this, right? And so he's like just kind of still in his doldrums. He doesn't engage with you at this point. You have to do something else. And so that is where we have gotten to, and we are basically right at an hour of recording. So we'll call it good right there. I think we'll call it good. And so again, we are learning the pacing side of this, everyone. Thank you for your kindness and understanding. I do not know how many hours each of us is going to have to dedicate to playing the game each week and all this different stuff. So I think that worked out. I think that this was a much better bite-sized portion. That was about half of my notes. And so we're going to resume here as far as gameplay. I've already done it. Corey's going to get through the remainder of this for the next episode. And so then we will play up to what was last time our stated playthrough point. So sorry we're turning this into multiple episodes, but I'm kind of glad that we are, because there's a lot to talk about on these things. So we're going to play. Go ahead.
One thing I wanted to add before we completely go off, in the regards to the sword, two things I had with that is that the sword it has agency. It is absolutely deciding some things, and it doesn't necessarily it doesn't empower the hero, because when I got the shard, basically nothing happened. There wasn't any fanfare or anything like that. So worthiness isn't necessarily about strength, is kind of another theme that I picked up with that, because you had the strength and the intelligence as one with the sword. So it'll be interesting to see. There are other components that I have to find, I assume. So I think that will be what I look for in the next playthrough.
Yeah, and so I think that's a great symbolic thing. It's a multiple components, to make the blade, but it's also multiple components to make a hero. Right.
It's not one-dimensional.
We are reforging or forging for the first time, perhaps, this hero character too, right? It's kind of I don't want to say deconstruction, but it's kind of a granular look at like a hero's journey. Because right now what we have is Frog, who we anticipate will become the hero of legend or whatever, and he's refusing the call. It's one of the key steps in the hero's journey, right? That's not me. I don't want to do that. I can't fight the Empire. I've got to get home. It's late enough as it is. Little my brain always goes to Star Wars, right? So
great.
But that's where we're at on this sort of arc, if you look at it from Frog's perspective. Sure. But yeah, we'll have a whole heck of a lot of stuff to talk about with that, and the Masamune. You're about to learn some really cool stuff there. So as a player, if you're joining with us, if you can stand to wait, then please continue to get to the castle with the dark castle in the distance with the bats and the black forest and all that stuff. It will be labeled Fiend Lord's Keep on the map. I accidentally said that earlier, so I'll just say, don't go in there. Save on the map. And if you're playing ahead, just try to slow down for us. Okay, we got lots to talk about.
Bring it down. Be more manageable.
The next big thing is going to be getting to figure out how to open those sealed doors. That's where I have for our next playthrough point. But,
good. I've seen
if you're already there, go for
chests everywhere I wanted to open.
There's a one in particular that we'll have to talk about, and that's where we're going to play through for the next one. So cool. Anyway, so lots and lots and lots of good stuff there. Housekeeping stuff. Thank you to everybody who is playing along with us. I'm just enjoying the heck out of this. We have our Facebook group that is free to join, the Side Quest Sages Gaming Lyceum, which credit to Corey for the name of that. It's so great. And so it's in the description for all the episodes now. Just go check that out if you'd like to meme with us and kind of goof off. I'm going to post some music-related stuff in there when I have some time related to our playthrough and some of the songs we've already experienced. I am in the process of setting up a separate Patreon page. It's just going to be Side Quest Sages on Patreon. And I think I just published it this morning, but there's not much there. We're going to do that. We'll have things like polls for what game to play next and those sorts of things. I have a lot more communities-driven type stuff in there coming if you are into that kind of thing. So, all right. That's all I got.
Sounds great.
All right. Corey, thanks so much. I appreciate you. And I will see y'all in the next episode.